chanter.
No, no, no. That's all I want. What else? Besides you.
Good evening, everybody. We'll start in about 3 minutes. All right, good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's had a good week and ending it on such a high note as personal financial management. So I hope you all have had a good last couple of weeks. You're safe and healthy, and your families are safe and healthy. And I hope you're doing okay. Our agenda tonight is to review assignment number 2, which I posted the grades and sent you a little email announcing that with the solutions. And we're going to talk about tonight investments. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, money market funds, ETFs, 401ks, pension plans, IRAs, all kinds of stuff that many of you probably are familiar with the names, but many of us have no idea what all those crazy names mean or represent as far as our future and as far as our money management as individuals. And we'll talk about that this evening. You have assignment number 3, which has already been posted to Blackboard. That is due a week from, it's due in more than a week on Sunday, April 26th. That assignment number 3 is due April 26th at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Not noon as originally indicated, but 6 p.m. on the 26th. It covers Chapter 4, Basics of Investments. And there's one question on it from Chapter 5, Insurance, which hopefully by that time you might have read in getting ready for our class on May 1st. And we'll talk more about that later. A couple other administrative things before we get going. Just remember, if you want to see your cumulative average in the course, you can go to 2 areas on your Blackboard. Here's the first page of your Blackboard. Naturally, let me just change this over to your view. You're looking at it how I see it, and that's not right. Here we go. There's the report card section. There you'll see your cumulative grade in the course up to this period of time. You can click on that number and it will take you to your grade center where the details of what makes that grade are all about. Another way of getting to your grade center is just to go scroll down to My Grades. Click on My Grades and you'll also go to your grade center. Now my grades here are a little bit different than yours, but you'll see a listing of your grades and what makes up that grade in My Grades. The same way, basically 2 different ways of getting into it. So that's what I would like you to make sure this week, or sometimes this weekend maybe, make sure you understand what your cumulative grade is. You might say, geez, I thought I've done better than that. Well, we have one student like that, and he seems to think he sent me his assignment. I have never received it or haven't found it yet. And so you got to make sure that I have received all your work. That's why it's important to post your work to Blackboard. If you send me work via email, I just counted them up this afternoon. I guess I was not knowing what I was doing today. I received 785 emails this past week. So if you send me something via email, it's probably going to get lost unless you particularly state what it's for in the title and that sort of thing. That's why it's important to post your work to Blackboard. So if I somehow miss your work, you're going to get a lower grade for that assignment because I don't have all your information. So make sure you check your report card and make sure that you understand what makes up that grade and what happens. For example, every assignment, if you got less than 100, I will usually send your grade back to you or your work back to you with my comments and showing you where you got off and relate that to the solution file that's in the assignment file folder for that particular assignment. So make sure you review that, understand how you got your grade, and understand where you stand in the class today. Right now, 45% of our course grade has been calculated, roughly half. We have 55% more, 1 assignment, 1 paper, and some class participation. So we're basically at the halfway point of our class. And this is where you stand basically through the halfway point of our class. So make sure you're familiar with that. Take a look at it tonight. make sure you're aware of it, or this weekend, and understand it. If you don't understand it, you let me know. I have a question from Jacob. Perhaps Hasse is a report card section just for this class, or it is for all your classes. It is just for this class. Every class will have its own report card section. You might at some levels, I think in the graduate study MBA program, you can see all your grades on one report card. Maybe you can see them here, but I don't see that. I only see the grades in this class. So it should say the name of the class, right here. The name of our class is Biz 493, and there that grade is there. So if you're given more information from other classes, it'll state the name of the class on your personal report card. Remember, everybody's report card is a little bit different due to the way your courses are and whatever you're doing. So just make sure you double check for our class and see where you stand, okay? Remember, if you do have a question on your grade or you don't understand it, be sure to let me know. So Cecilia says that her report card shows all her classes taken, so that's a good thing. Thanks, Cecilia. So you can see all your grade status for all your classes. In the past, and maybe they changed it since everybody's online this term. I guess they're including all the courses on one report card. So that's good. So you can see your status in all the classes in your report card section. So 2 ways of getting at it: on the front page of your Blackboard, and then under the tools section, my grades are also there. So just make sure you're familiar. As I said earlier, 45% of our course has been determined. We have 55% more to go. Also, another thing that has occurred in the last week is last weekend, all of you probably received an email from the university asking you to comment on and give an evaluation of the course up to this point in time. That evaluation is due today. If you've not done it, it's due today. So they sent out that email last weekend, I believe, to every student taking a course that has been changed over from an original on-campus course or a in-class course to an online course, and they wanted you to ask you a few questions about your feedback from that. I kind of got that feedback personally from you in our discussions individually this past week or so. You all gave me some great feedback in our discussions, but also it's important that the university understands and knows your feedback on these issues, because as every week goes by, as you're aware of, this quarantine becomes more muddier than muddier about what's going to happen in the future. Because why? We have politicians running the show. Who knows what the hell they're doing? And so now it's turning into a partisan type of deal where the Democratic governors want their say in things and the Republican president wants his say in things. And so who knows what's going to happen. But this is what I'm sure what's going to happen for us as University of La Verne people. You are going to be taking an online course this summer if you're taking any courses at all. They will all be online this summer. You can go to the bank with that one. They haven't officially told you that yet, but Professor Hasse is officially telling you that right now, okay? So that's that. What's going to happen in the fall is totally up in the air. It depends on how fast this quarantine subsides, especially in Southern California. And the university is in a wait and see game. I think as of now, the date of maybe making a decision might be June 1st. By June 1st, they'll have some idea what to do about the fall. If I was a betting man off the record, which sometimes I'm pretty good at this, I would say it's about a 50-50 chance that we will have online courses next fall, 50-50. Just to be on the safe side, I think that's my feeling. So it's 50-50. Yes, we could have it, and yes, we could not. But part of the process of you doing this is to get you prepared for that. Yes, I know a lot of students do not like this, and I understand, but also we have to think of your safety. I don't think your family or your spouses or your children would feel very good if you were being put in a situation with 20 or 10 students sitting all around you, hacking and breathing all night. I don't think that would be a very good situation to put you in. So the university wants to make totally sure that you're safe, and that's the reason for this. It has nothing to do with the university changing their goals of education. Nothing at all. It has everything to do with the safety of you people, the safety. Now, if I do my job and your professors do their job the way they should, you shouldn't have a problem. Because these online courses are, for me anyways, are taught exactly like I would be right in front of you. All right, exactly. The only difference is we don't maybe have the feedback, the conversation back and forth, but that's up to you. You can give me feedback right from your office, right from your den, right from your kitchen. You can give me questions. That's the same as in any classroom. All right. And also it's the same of any classroom. You can turn off your video like some of us do, and you can hide in the dark like you're sitting in the back row of a class, not paying attention to what I'm talking about. Hopefully you're not. That's my job to keep you engaged. But if you were in a classroom and I know it because I've taught in a lot of Friday night classes. A lot of students come back and sit in the back room and turn on their ESPN Sports Center on the laptop and have no idea what's going on in the classroom. So if that's the case, that's the case. But you're in it to get value, and you're getting the same value from online as you are being in classroom if I was right in front of you. Trust me, you are. So that's my job. And if I don't do my job, you let me know, or you let somebody else know. Or if in another class that you have, if they're not doing their job, you let somebody know. It's just like anywhere else. If you don't do your job from home nowadays, you might not have a job to come back to. So we're all in the same boat. So I urge you all to fill out your evaluations. You're going to do another evaluation for this course at the end of the course. And at the end of the course, we're going to have another one-on-one session with me towards the end of the course to make sure you don't have any questions concerning the final part of the course. So that's where we stand. Now, let me just bring up everybody here and see who's here. Very good. A couple more people have come on, and let me just make sure I got everybody here. Make sure. Okay, very good. Okay, so there we stand. So again, the first part of this class is make sure you guys this weekend check on your status of your grade. Make sure you understand where you stand, what you have to do, what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. If you're doing wrong, if you need help, you contact me. If you're doing right, sit back and have a glass of wine and toast yourself. You're doing fine so far. So that's what you should do this weekend. We're about halfway through our coursework. Now, speaking of coursework, let's bring up our assignment number 2 that I posted the solutions and the information today. Just to go over a couple of parts of that where some people had some difficulty. And just to go over that. Again, the solutions that I post in Blackboard are my interpretation of your work. Again, some people say, geez, I didn't write it that way. I wrote it something different and I still got it all right. That's right, because it was your interpretation. It was your information that you were trying to show me. I give a little bit more information than you need because I want to show you the full breadth of what you could answer as a possible answer to the problem. So each question here in this assignment was worth 20 points for the 5 questions. The first question is, in your opinion, what is better, Chapter 7 or Chapter 13 bankruptcies? Now, Chapter 7 and Chapter 13 bankruptcies are the Darth Vader of borrowing money, all right? They're the dark side. If you do not pay back money, you file bankruptcy. And the bankruptcy is like a timeout to tell your creditors you need time to figure out how you're going to pay this money back. And Chapter 7 is the simplest form of bankruptcy. It's if the debtor has the assets not protected by an exemption, a court-appointed trustee may sell the assets and distribute the net proceeds to the creditors and discharge the debt, okay? In almost 99% of individual bankruptcy cases, the trustee closes the case without selling anything that belonged to the debtor. In other words, Chapter 7 is by way of determining the bankruptcy code, about selling off as many assets as you can to pay off your creditors. If you don't have all the assets to pay them off, the bankruptcy says you'll pay off 50 cents on the dollar, 25 cents on the dollar, whatever. Chapter 13 bankruptcy is a bankruptcy which is also called a wage earners plan. It enables an individuals with regular income to develop a schedule of payments. Individuals can take over the chapter 7 is basically liquidation. You sell off everything. Chapter 13, it gives you a plan to give you a way of paying it back, having your wages docked, having, when you file your taxes, if you get a refund, your tax refund goes to your creditors, not to you. When you get a check from the United States government this week for $1,200 and the IRS says, oh, all their money is going to pay off a creditor from bankruptcy, they'll send the check to them. All right, that's what chapter 13 is about. It gives a way of paying off without liquidating or selling off all the assets. And that's basically what I was looking for in those. Those are personal bankruptcies. Those are not corporate bankruptcies. Corporate bankruptcies are a different thing. But there are bankruptcy courts in every area of Los Angeles and Southern California. There's a bankruptcy court in San Bernardino. There's a bankruptcy court in Riverside. There's a bankruptcy court in Pomona. There's a bankruptcy court in downtown Los Angeles. There's a bankruptcy court in How does Mr. Hasse know where all these bankruptcy courts are? The reason for it, I got a lot of friends who went bankrupt and I had to help them get out of it. All right, there's a bankruptcy court in Santa Monica. There's a bankruptcy court in Irvine. There's a bankruptcy court in Orange. There's a bankruptcy court in San Diego. So they're all over the place, and they're busy, and they're going to get even busier, as you're probably aware of these days. So those courts are there to either help people get a timeout to organize their finances and reschedule, readapt, whatever. They either can liquidate, sell everything and say, here it is, or you can work out a payment schedule or a payment plan. Depends on the state of your finances. Also, it depends on your legal representation. A lot of people go into bankruptcy and they're not really knowing what bankruptcy is all about. And that can be a difficult thing. So that's an important part of borrowing, that if you get in trouble, there's particular ways legally that you can get out of that trouble. And that's what question 1 is about. Question number 2 is a little calculation. Using the following formula and calculation on page 62. If you didn't use the calculation on page 62, you could have used your cell phone. You could have used a spreadsheet where the payment is $500. The interest rate is 6%. The term is 48 months. Calculate the loan amount for the following. How much will you be borrowing if you have to pay $500 a month? All right, $500 for 48 months, including interest, $21,290.16. Everybody pretty well got that. Very good job. I thought some of us would have a real problem with that, but I'm glad that everybody did a good job. If you need help with that calculation, I can provide you the figures to do that. Just let me know. What is the difference between a spending plan and a budget? And many of you got this one too. I thought this would kind of freak some of you out, but basically they're the same, except the only difference is a budget is more of a spending or a financial goal. All right. A budget is a way of determining a financial goal or a plan of action or a series. A spending plan is kind of black and white, cast in concrete, what you want to spend. That's basically the difference. They're both somewhat the same, but a budget tends to, if you want to reach a goal, you want to save a certain amount every month for savings or whatever. That's what I was looking for there, the slight difference between them. Question number 4, which everybody did excellent. Well, Anna, I wanted you to go search the internet, and there's a variety of different answers here, and I accepted pretty well everyone because I know FICO and different scores are available at different locations and different amounts. But generally speaking, if I went to the New York Times or any place and looked what is the minimal score these days, usually it's around in the mid 700s as a typical FICO score for somebody who's borrowing money for a mortgage. But it can get as low as the lower 600s. But generally speaking, if you have a credit score or a FICO score in the mid 700s, you're going to pretty well qualify with your credit history with that score for a mortgage. And then what is a typical medium income? Now I live in Claremont. So I went to the Chamber of Commerce in Claremont. I went to a real estate website. I went to Zillow.com, which is a real estate website, and I asked what is the average house for sale in Claremont? $696,000. What a ripoff. All right, but that's what it is, and it's different in every area. And I wanted you to do this per your area, what it would cost. And also, I did a little examination of different areas of rentals or rental income in Colorado. I didn't ask you for that, but I just, for the sake of it, wanted to see what a sample rental was in Claremont. It's roughly around $2,600. In the Los Angeles area, it's the medium rental is like $3,200 for a house. So I just went through that, but I wanted to see you to go through that process of trying to find that information, and you all did that very well. Then we get to our stock portfolio. All right. The stock portfolio was to update your stock portfolio. And again, you're going to have to do this on the next assignment as well, is to show me what your portfolio was valued as of Friday, April 10th. Now, I specifically said Friday, April 10th to try to throw you a little bit of a curveball, because Friday, April 10th was Good Friday. And Good Friday is a holiday on the stock exchanges. So the answers you had to give were as Thursday, April 10th. April 9th. Friday, April 10th was a holiday, Good Friday. Now, we don't have very many Catholics in the audience here. That kind of got by some people, but it's all right. So you had to get your stock price as of April 9th, Thursday. So let me show you my portfolio as of that time, and yours portfolio should come fairly close to this as far as the setup is concerned. Some of you have different methods, but I'll show you what I'm looking for when I look for these answers. And here's Professor Hasse's portfolio as of Thursday, April 9th. As you can see, my portfolio, remember, this is only after a week or so, my portfolio went up around 3.67%. It went from $100,000 to $103,667. That's about a 3.67%. All right. Again, I kept the same amount of shares of stock. And then I found the new stock prices for my 4 holdings. I multiplied those stock prices times the shares of stock to get my new holding. Notice I have totals here. It's good to show totals. And notice I show the percent. How did I get this percent? I took the difference between my April 9th and my beginning, which is 3,667.54, and I divided that difference by what I started out with, 100,000. I get 0.0367, which is 3.67%. And there's the formula how I calculated that in the cell. Also, I was looking at the change in the indexes over that week, or over that 10 days, I guess you could say it. How has the indexes changes? The Dow, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ. We'll be talking about these tonight in our investments discussion. These are indexes that tell you how the relative market is doing. How is Mr. Hasse doing to how the market of the Dow Jones 30 industrial stocks did? How is Mr. Hasse's portfolio doing compared to the 500 companies in the S&P 500? How is Mr. Hasse's company doing in relationship to the NASDAQ exchange of 2,500 companies? Well, Mr. Hasse's not doing as well. The Dow went up 8%, and almost 6% for the NASDAQ. I did not do as well as the market, which is probably usually the way it usually works out, because I'm selecting just 4 stocks, and these are 30, 500, and 2,500 stocks. So there's a lot difference there in the, some companies do bad, but they're covered by the other companies in the index. It's called portfolio management. Here, my portfolio is rather thin, just 4 stocks. So if General Electric does lousy, it brings down my return of all the other stocks. And some of you are like that too, but some of you are doing quite well also. We'll see how these do as of Friday, April 24th. So I was looking for three things. I was looking for your portfolio amounts. I was looking for the change in your portfolio, and I was looking for your indexes and how they were at that time period. All right, good question from Sandy, how to get the correct numbers in the indexes. All right, let's do that. Let's bring up our site here. Thank you, Sandy, good question. Okay, here's my browser, Google. I'm going to do a search, and I'm going to bring up Yahoo Finance. You can use Google Finance. You can just type in the indexes for that day, but I like using this because it's a market indicator. So I bring up Yahoo Finance. This is a way you can find all your stocks. Excuse me. And here I'm going to type in Dow, D-O-W, Dow. And it shows it right here, Dow Index, Dow Index. I click on that. I go to historical data. And it gives my April 9th Dow Index, 23,719.37. It gives my March 31 index, 21,917.16. Those are the indexes as of March 31 and April 9th. I go and type in S&P, and it brings up the Standard & Poor Index 500. Click on that. Historical price, historical data. And there's my April 9th index, 2789.82, March 31, 2584.59. I go and type in NASDAQ, the NASDAQ index. Historical data. April 9th, 8153.58, March 31st, 7700.10. So that's how I got my indexes, by bringing up those indexes in the search in Yahoo Finance and clicking on historical data, and I can get those prices on those given dates. Okay, Sandy? That's how I would do that. And you can do that for any company in your portfolio, and it'll give you the prices going back a variety of days. You're concerned about the closing price, not the open. But the open kind of makes sense. It's the open price at the beginning of trading. The high of the price during the course of the trading day. The trading day on the New York Stock Exchange Pacific time goes from 6:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the afternoon on the stock exchanges. They start trading at 6:30 in the morning, and from 6:30 to 1 p.m., that's the high, as that index got during the day, and this is the low of the day, and this is what it closed at. That's what those numbers mean. Okay, well done. So that's how the portfolio is calculated. 20 points for that one. And we can go back again to our Blackboard site. And what I have done is I have posted those grades. And I've sent you back your folder, and even sent you back your portfolio folder if I really thought it needed changing. And that gives you the makeup of your quiz or assignment number 2. And again, you go to the assignment section. There's the solutions assignment section. There's the solutions. There's my portfolio. And there's assignment 3, your work for next week, called investments. And we'll look at that a little bit later. That's your work due next Sunday, the 26th, because we don't have class next week on the 24th. So that's your work for next week. Okay. Any questions on assignment number 2, sports fans? All right, very good. Okay, let's get rid of that. There's a nice little tidbit if you could have in your back pocket. That's stock in a stock certificate for Walt Disney Company. All right, the Walt Disney Company. This is an investment. Personal finance, your personal money management is, in this class, is basically doing 2 things. Living for today, presently, and also planning and living for the future. What's the future? Investments. What's today? Paying taxes, managing your cash flow, paying your bills, making income. All right? The best way you can do that. But the future is investments. Now, the good thing about a lot of this is many of the investments are taken care of for you. But that can be a good and a bad thing. Because somebody's taking care of you, how do you know they're doing a good job for you? Or just ripping you off? That can be an interesting analysis. So I think it's good for everybody, even though we have investment managers and 401k managers and pension managers and all these stockbrokers and banks out there representing us with our money. It's probably a good idea to have some idea where this money is going. All right. And this is where it's going. It's going to buy equity in a company. This is a share of stock of Disney. When you own this and you purchase this on the New York Stock Exchange, you are now an owner of Disney. You're an owner. Sounds kind of impressive, doesn't it? But the thing about it is there's 750 million owners of Disney. A lot of people. A lot of people own Disney stock, all right? So yes, you're an owner. Now, if you're Warren Buffett, you own roughly about 35 million shares of Disney stock. You're a major owner. But if you're Rick Hasse, you maybe have 100 shares of these stock. 100 shares is not much. But in terms of me, Rick Hasse, that's important. That's my future. If this stock grows and when I retire, I could sell it and have some money. If this stock grows and I die, I can give it to my family and they have money. All right. It's investment in the future. And stock is one of the most prevalent types of investing that you can do. When you buy a 401k plan, you're investing in stocks. Good question, Jacobs. Do investments mainly pertain to investing just in the stock market? No. We're going to look at bonds. We're going to look at 401ks. All different ways of investing. Stocks are the most prevalent, though. I'm going to use a word here that sounds kind of funny. Stocks are the most sexiest ways of investing. Wow, you own stock in Disney? Wow, you own stock in, where is it here? You own stock in Apple Computer? Let me bring that one up. You own stock in Apple Computer? Really? Wow. Got so many files open tonight, it's crazy. Here it is. Apple Computer. Wow, this is one share of stock in Apple Computer. Currently trading today about $250 a share. All right. Now, if you bought this share of stock when it was worth $18 a share, you've done pretty good. The best thing about it, though, in order to do pretty good, you got to sell it. If you just have this sitting in your safe deposit box or in your underwear drawer of your closet, it's worth nothing. You have to sell it to get the money. That's an interesting thing about stock. You have to find a market who's willing to buy that stock. All right. In return for that, you're an owner of Apple. You're an owner of Disney. And also you get some benefits because of that. If you own a certain amount of shares in Apple, you can go to the Apple store and get a discount on purchasing something. If you own a certain number of shares of Disney, you can go to Disneyland and get a free ticket. Now you have to own about 1,000 shares of those suckers, so that's a little bit different. But you are entitled to benefits. But also everybody gets a benefit. You get a dividend check if the company pays a dividend, usually every quarter. You get a check in the mail, a dividend check for that stock. If you want to, you can go to Cupertino every April and participate in the stockholders meeting. If you want to, every March, you can go to Burbank and go to the Disney stockholders meeting and participate in those events. Why? You're an owner. You can go and participate. But the main thing about being an owner of this Apple stock or this Disney stock is that you now own a piece of the company. If the company does well, you do well. If the company does lousy, you do lousy. No more, no less. And who determines whether you do well or lousy? The market, the stock market. That's where you go to sell or buy the stock. If the market thinks Apple is doing a good job, your price of your stock will go up. If the market thinks Apple is doing a lousy job, the stock will go down. Also, not only is Apple doing a good job, but what's the economic environment that Apple is in? Over the last 6 weeks, almost every stock in the stock market hit their lows, hit their low points. Why? Why every stock? Because the economy has had a hit to it because of the coronavirus. Everybody thinks their stock is doing lousy, and the market shows that. Now, in the last 2 weeks, the stock market has come back. In the last 2 weeks, the market has increased about 15%. Why? Because people think we're past the bad point of this virus and things are going to start getting better, and Apple and Disney and Ford Motor Company and General Motors are going to start doing better because now we're past the low point of the virus. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that is hit yet, but I'm just going to let that go for now. But it depends on your interpretation. If you ask Donald Trump, he's the 7th son of the chosen one who can walk on water and can fix all this. Just by him saying that leads me to want to not get back into the stock market right now. But it's your interpretation. It's your viewpoint and how you think the economy and the market is going. That's one of the interesting things about stock. It's individual perspective. It's how you, Cecilia, how you, Veronica, how you, Sandy, how you, Carlo, think what's going to happen. Not Mr. Hasse. Not Donald Trump, not Gavin Newsom. It's how it fits into your financial plan. Are you willing to hang on to the stock and buy it today or sell it today based on your individual personal financial need? That's the difference. It's a very individual thing. That is stock. That's the explanation of stock. But then we also have other things. Let me show you this one here. Oh, hi, Ebony. Nice to see you. That's not it, is it? Oh, I'll get it. I'll find it. I got so many files open here, it's driving me nuts. Ah, there we go. I did it again. I don't want that. There we go. This is a bond. All right. This is a bond. Kind of looks like a stock, same type of certificate. Kind of looks like a stock, but notice in the upper left and right hand corners it says $1,000. You didn't see that on Disney or Apple's certificates. This is a bond. You are lending money to Pennzoil. That's what this is. You're not an owner. You don't own Pennzoil. You're a creditor. It's a bond. Now, many of us never see these certificates, but all of you own bonds. Trust me. You all own bonds. When you put money in a savings account, you own a bond. When you put money into a 401k, you own a bond. When you put money into a pension plan, you own a bond. If any of you are state workers, for teachers, government employees, and you're part of the CalPERS investment plan, retirement plan, you own bonds. Trust me. CalPERS is one of the largest owners of bonds in the market. If you put, let me go back to that statement earlier. If you put money in your savings account, wait a minute, Mr. Hasse, I own a savings account. No, yeah, but you know what the bank does with that money? They invest it in bonds. They take that money, your money, and yes, it's your money. It's in your savings account. You can draw it out whenever you can. But they take all that money and they buy bonds, mostly treasury bonds these days, U.S. government bonds. But you own a bond. And every bond in the world has a $1,000 value, $1,000. And you're lending, if you own one bond, you have lent Pennzoil $1,000. In return, you're going to get interest at 5.25% for the maturity of that bond every year. So what's 5.25% of 100,000? I believe it's around $52. You're going to get a check every year for 5.25% of $1,000, and that's called a coupon payment. That's your income. That is guaranteed for every year you own the bond. This is the difference between stocks and bonds. When you buy Apple stock and Disney stock, you are not guaranteed a dividend. You're not. It's not part of the prospectus. Now, hopefully you'll get a dividend if the company does well, but it's not guaranteed. But if you buy a bond or own a bond, you're guaranteed a coupon interest payment. If you don't get it, then the bond company will go in default and have to sell assets to meet those obligations. It's called bankruptcy. That's the attractiveness of bonds. You know exactly what you're going to get. When you buy an Apple stock, you don't have a clue what the hell's going to happen to your stock. No idea. You don't know how much dividends you're going to get in the future. You don't know what the stock price is going to do. No idea. All you know is, I own Apple. All right. But with a bond, and if you own Pennzoil bond, you know exactly that you're going to get 5.25% of $1,000. Let me double check my math there. You're going to get $52.50 every year for the life of that bond, and at maturity, you get your $1,000 back. So you get $52.50 every year, and you get your $1,000 back, and that's guaranteed. That's why bonds are so attractive for a lot of people. There's no risk. The only risk is if the company goes in default, and hopefully that won't happen. And usually most bonds have ratings, AAA, AA, single A, B, B+. The ratings will indicate to you the risk of default. I would not worry about buying a bond in Apple Computer. But I would worry about if you owned a bond that is issued by the government of Greece. That's a little creepy. I would be a little bit leery if you bought a bond that was issued by Radio Shack. That's a little scary. But most companies are pretty solid. And also the good thing about it, if the company defaults, they have to sell off assets and you get paid first. You get your money first. You get either your interest or the principal first. You're at the top of the list. They pay you even before they pay Uncle Sam's and their back taxes. They pay you even before they pay their ex-employees if they go in default. Bondholders get paid first. Yes. So that's why you want to have a mix of bonds and stocks in your investments. Both have different goals. A bond, you know exactly what's going on, but you're only limited by the amount of money you can make. You can only make $52.50 a year. That's it. With a stock, you have no idea what's going on, but if I bought Apple stock on November 1st, 1984, and I paid $17 for it, November 1st, 1984, if I bought 10 shares of Apple stock at $17.50, today, I did the math this afternoon, on the closing of Wall Street today on April 17th, I would have now in my portfolio $175 million. $175 million. Because the stock has split, it has grown, the price has grown. From 1984 to 2020, $170.50 investment has turned into $125 million. Damn. Now, there's not too many people around anymore who were the original shareholders of Apple. They either are dead and have sold their stock, or they are still alive and they've sold it just to get the liquidity over the years. But if you hung on to that stock till today, you'd have a portfolio on just that holding of $125 million. Takes your breath away. That's a lot different than lending money to Apple, a bond. Jacob asks a question about a bond. What happens when your bond matures and you want to cash it out and the bank tells you that the bond has not reached its full amount yet? That means you have a United States government savings bond. That means you have a corporate bond. Corporate bonds are full value at maturity. Now, many of us sometimes get savings bonds. Savings bonds have to go up in price up to a level over time, and many times due to the nature of the market over the period of that bond, it hasn't reached its full value and has to go beyond the maturity date to do that. But that's what is called a US Treasury or savings bond. That's a different type of bond than a corporate bond. Okay. I remember when I was a kid, every year my grandfather gave me a $100 savings bond. And on that savings bond, it said due in 5 years. So if I took that to the bank right after my grandfather gave me the $100 bond, I would get probably about $30. But if I wait the full 5 years, I would get $100. That's a savings bond. The interest and the principal grow over time. My grandfather probably paid $30 for it. In 5 years, it becomes $100. Now, over the course of time and in the length of how the markets have changed over time, some savings bonds have to go beyond the maturity period to pay off because of the deep discount nature of when whoever bought that bond originally paid for it. But that's government bonds, and not all government bonds are like that anyways. It's just those what they call a specific issue of savings bonds. Usually they're called, and I'm not trying to impress you here with my knowledge, those are called Series E bonds. I'd stay away from those. They're kind of stupid. Just buy a regular $100 Treasury bill yield bond or something like Treasury note, or buy a certificate of deposit, which is based on Treasury rates, or buy a money market fund. That's based on Treasury rates. Don't buy Series E bonds. Those days are long gone in our country. But still, a lot of people buy them just for the sake of, oh, I'm a bondholder. So that's the difference. Good question, Jacob. Thank you. Excuse me, I have to have a drink. Thank you. All right. So that's stocks and bonds. All right. Those are the two primary major vehicles. When you get an IRA, you can go like right now, you can get an IRA and have it go to your taxes for 2019. You have until July 15th because of the tax regulations of the CARES Act by Congress. You cannot You don't have to pay your taxes till July 15th if you owe money. Mr. Hasse is not going to pay his taxes to July 15th. But if you want to reduce your tax rate, you can buy an IRA. And when you go to Wells Fargo or Bank of America or your credit union or wherever and buy an IRA, you can tell them, I want this IRA to be invested in a mutual fund. And that mutual fund can be invested in bonds, corporate bonds. That mutual fund could be invested in stocks. That mutual fund could be invested in a combination of stocks and bonds. Why do you designate that? Because it's how you want the return, how you want the growth over time. A stock is like going to Vegas. You're betting on the future. You're betting that you're betting right on that stock or that company. A bond is more secure, risk-free, so in some respect. The only risk is, will the company go in default in the future? But if the company has a track record of a good bond rating or a good credit rating, you don't have to worry about that. But you're only getting what the bond tells you you're going to get. No more, no less. That's why we invest in money. Do we want to make a lot of money over time? You buy equity, a stock. If you want to save and be conservative and get just minimal amount of payments over time, you get a bond. Let me show you something. Get out of this. All right. Investments can be stocks, can be bonds, it can be money funds. Investments can be real estate. Investments can be commodities. Investments can be mutual funds. I'm having a tough time here. Which are also called ETFs. ETFs, it's a fancy mutual fund. I'll talk about that. Investments can be just putting it into your mattress. That's an investment. Investment could be just putting it into a savings account. All right. Each investment, each one of these investments has risk. The risk of failure, the risk of success. You, the investor, have to determine how much risk you can get. This is going to be an awful example, but I usually try calling it the risk as the tight underwear risk. If you buy, let's say, a stock in a company that has not doing very well, but you think it's going to grow, you're going to be a little bit leery of that because, geez, your underwear is going to be a little bit tighter than usual. You're going to be a little bit uncomfortable about investing in that stock. Or you can put your money in your mattress. Your underwear is going to feel very nice and loose because you know exactly where your money is. Now, it's not going to be making much money, none. You're probably even losing money by putting into your mattress because of inflation. That's why you invest, to have an investment that outpaces inflation. Right now, inflation's about 2%. You want to make at least 2% a year on your stock investment, on your bond investment, on your money market funds, on real estate. All right? You want to beat inflation because then your money increases its value. Antonio, what's the meaning behind high price to earnings P ratio when it comes to growth investing? Do you buy stock with low return? Sounds like Antonio knows a little bit about investing. Also, this is talked about in your chapter 4 on investing. The PE ratio is the relationship of the stock price in the market to the earnings or profits that that company is making. The general rule of thumb is when the PE ratio is high, usually over 30, that means the stock is overvalued in the market. It means if you're thinking about buying that stock now, stay away from it. It's too overvalued. It's probably going to be dropping in price over time. If you own the stock now, maybe it's a good time to sell the stock because eventually the market is going to figure out that this company is valued much more higher than it's actually earning in profits. That's called a high PE ratio. A low PE ratio is something under 20. In other words, the stock price is a little bit undervalued to the earnings of that stock in the market, profits. And maybe now is a good time to buy the stock. In the last 6 weeks in the market, there are what is called exchange traded or program trading of the stock market. And when the computers see the PE ratio of a company going up, 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 because the stock market is overvaluing a stock, it'll hit a certain P ratio, let's say 35, and at 35, it'll start selling the stock automatically. The computer says it's too overvalued, cash out. Take your money and run. PE ratios are used in a lot of logarithms to run the market. Also, if a stock hits a certain PE ratio like 10 or 15, the traders will start buying the stock because the computer is telling them it's cheap. Buy the stock now, it has room to grow. So the price earnings ratio is an indicator. It's called a technical indicator. The textbook talks about this. You can be a fundamental buyer of stock or you can be a technical buyer of stock. The technical buyer of stock is all based on numbers, PE ratios, earnings per share, certain incidents that happen to the value of the stock that will trigger a buy or a sell order. That's what that means, Antonio. And that's why if you're a technical trader of a stock, that makes a big difference in what happens and how you manage that stock and the risk of the stock by looking at technical indicators. Let me write that up here. Risk can be determined by technical indicators or numbers, specifically called ratio analysis. Or risk can be determined by fundamentals. Another name for that is blue chips. Blue chips, what does that mean? For many years, General Electric, you could go do no wrong. That was a blue chip fundamental stock. Somebody comes to you and says, I want to get in the market and I want low risk. They'll tell you, buy General Electric, buy General Motors. Those days are long gone. Today, the blue chips are Cisco, Apple, Amazon, McDonald's even still. Those are the blue chip stocks. Based on their history, they make money every year. So you're a knucklehead if you want to buy a stock that's going to grow every year, might not grow as much as you want it to, but you're always probably going to make money by looking at those fundamentals, blue chip stocks. Stocks that make money every year, year in and year out. Now those change with the course of time and with the changing in economy, but right now blue chip stocks are basically the Dow Jones Industrial 30.
Yes, sir.
Apple, those type of stocks. Somebody have a question?
Yeah, could you explain compounding interest?
Well,
I was listening to an individual online and he was talking about how he buys stocks and I guess what he makes and then he just keeps it and he compounds it, but I didn't really understand what he was talking about.
well, it's not compound interest. Compound interest would be like a savings account or something like a money market fund. Compounding means you buy a stock at $20.
Okay.
Okay, let's say you buy 100 shares. Okay, then the price at the end of 1 year goes up to $30. All right, what you want to do now is then you buy another 100 shares at $30. Then the stock price the next year or the next period goes up to 40. I'm making this very simple, but this is what this means. Then the stock moves up. You're constantly buying more stock as the price goes up. So this $20 original order is making a lot of money now. And you're basing your fundamentals on the stock is going to keep growing. So you buy what you can afford every year, and you compound that profit over time.
Oh, so with the profits you buy the other shares, right?
No, you have, because you know the profits are, that means you got to sell the stock.
Oh, so you're just buying without the
Well, you're making money on paper because the price is going up,
yeah,
right? But in order to really cash out, you got to sell it all, right?
yeah.
So that's the difference between like a savings account that's compound interest. You get the interest right away. With a stock compounding, meaning you're compounding on the value of the stock over time, but the only way to get the real value out of it, you got to sell the stock.
Mm.
That's what that means.
Oh, okay, okay. I
Okay.
got you.
And what some investors do is they get to a certain level, then they start selling off these shares and make the profit. Then they maybe invest a little more with that profit, or they just take the profit and say, I'm going to Bermuda. But they keep to this system over time and they sell off pieces of it over time.
Oh, okay, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got you. I
Yeah.
got you.
That's a type of investment philosophy. All
Mm.
right. Where this is soured is if you're with a company that has a history of going up and down and up and down, up and down, it's very inconsistent, you're going to end up having a lot of gray hairs or start drinking heavily because it's going to drive you nuts. But if you're with a blue chip or a company that has a track record of always making money, that's a pretty good system to do. But that's you got to stay on top of it. That's why brokers are managers. When you, let's say you want to get into the stock market, and you don't, you kind of took Mr. Hasse's class, so you know what's going on. But at the same time, you go, you're going to have to do my managing. So your broker is going to be an investment advisor and manager and make the decisions for you. Then you got to trust them. And also that's going to cost you more. You're going to have to pay them more of the commission because they're managing your portfolio. That's why a 401k is kind of nifty. A 401k is you have that through your employer, you put money in, you have a manager choose those assets. You tell them kind of, I want to own 50% stocks, 30% bonds, and 20% cash. Well, they'll invest your portfolio that way. But because it's part of a 401k with a lot of investors, the costs are minimal. They're cheaper because you have a lot of investors using the same advisors. And so with these, with this type of strategy where you're doing it more individual, it's going to be very expensive. You better have a broker you trust. Another question. I think 401ks are the best for us. Now, if you win the lottery and get $1 million check, I wouldn't put it into a 401k. Okay, I would put it into something like real estate. All right, where real estate, you're not going to turn that over quickly, but you're owning something that's always going to be making money in the future. Real estate. So it depends on how much money you're talking about, and it depends on what you want to do. Yes, Jacob, yes, 401k is the same as a retirement account. Exactly right. Right. The good thing about 401ks is you're getting a tax break. All right. Now, what's a 401k is if you work for a for-profit company. If you work for like University of Laverne or the Catholic Church or American Red Cross, a 401k is called a 403b. It's a different tax code. It's the same thing. You take that money out of your pay. You don't have to pay tax on that income that you redistributed to your 401k. You're lowering your tax rate or your tax bill by putting money and saving it for the future. When you're going to have to pay the taxes is when you draw it out when you're 65 years old or 60 years old or 55 years old. Then you pay tax on it. But a 401k is stashing money and you're not paying income tax on that money. Let's say I get paid $1,000 a week and I put $100 into a 401k. I only have to pay tax on the $900. The $100 is tax free. Okay. So that's why you do that. The main thing about 401k is the government did that as a change in the tax law 20 years ago because it wanted to encourage people for investment. And how do you encourage people by investment? You don't pay tax on that money. And then when you pull it out when you're older in a different tax bracket, then you pay the tax. That's how that works. That's what an IRA is about, individual retirement account, and a 401k. 401k is a managed investment portfolio by a company, by like Fidelity, Vanguard, insurance companies. They manage it. And IRA is more individual management. You tell the Bank of America, I want an IRA, this is where it's going to be invested. You tell a company, this is an IRA, this is where it goes. You make the decision where it goes. A 401k, you kind of have a general idea where you want it to go, but they manage the money. Cecilia says, is also beneficial when you need a loan to invest in real estate as a down payment. I think I know where you're heading on this, Cecilia, is because you can take money out of an IRA or a 401k and take that out of there and use it as a down payment on real estate. The problem with that is if it's a lot of money, you're going to have to pay a lot of tax on that money as you draw it out of the 401k. Yes, you're reinvesting it into an asset. Yes, you're reinvesting it into future earnings, but sometimes you might have a tax problem just taking the money out of the 401k. You have to make sure you're counseled on that. Make sure if you don't have an accountant, CPA, make sure somebody in your HR office, somebody in your company can counsel you on what's going to happen if you decide to do that. That's an important decision. All right. But that's a lot of us. That's how a lot of us fund more housing. I got qualified for a mortgage, but I got to come up with $15,000 as a down payment. I don't have 15,000. Oh, yes, I do. I got 100,000 sitting in my 401k. Oh, well, you can take $15,000 out of that 401k and use it as your down payment. But guess what? You're going to get an IRS statement saying, all right, up with the dinero, you got to pay 20% of that $15,000 as tax on taking that money out.
That's only if you do it outside of a loan. If you do it as a loan, like I've done before, you don't get taxed on it for your income.
What type of loan? Was this a bridge loan or a straight mortgage loan?
It was just a loan out of my 401k. And,
okay. So you're borrowing the money. You're not taking it out. All right.
I've done the hardship as well, but it's I think about $200 or $300 tax. You get taxed for every 2,000. Yeah. So it's very minimal.
That makes sense. Now I understand. So yes, you can borrow money from your 401k, like write yourself a loan and do that. Matter of fact, I happen to be, funny, I'm on the retirement committee that manages the retirement fund of University of Laverne. And we have many people taking out loans from the fund and using the equity of that 401k to get financing for a mortgage. Exactly right, Cecilia. Okay, that's right. But some people also just take the cash out too. I would advise against that and just take out a loan. But here's the bad thing about that. You better hope that investment in the real estate is going to outpace the interest and the return on the loan that you took out of your 401k. If you end up buying property on 3 Mile Island, which used to be a nuclear waste dump, and you buy real estate and that real estate goes down the toilet, you're getting screwed on that, and then you're losing the value that you now have to pay back on your loan in the 401k. So you got to make sure when you do that, you still get some good advice of saying, okay, where am I buying this real estate? Where am I buying that property? And is there future return in that property that outpaces the amount of money I got to pay back on that loan within the 401k? Got to make sure about that.
Yeah, well, I know the interest rate is a lot lower than another loan.
Okay,
anywhere else.
You're right about that.
Because you're paying the interest back to yourself as well. So it helps.
I don't want to be a bummer on this. But now, what's going to probably happen to real estate prices over the summer?
They're probably going to drop because of what's going on.
Exactly right. So let's say that happens, and let's say if it reaches a certain point, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it happened in 2008 in Southern California, is that the real estate prices dropped so far, you went in default on your mortgage, and you lose the asset, you lose the property. You still have the loan to pay back on that property, and you're not living it anymore, and you still have to pay back the loan on the 401k. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that happened to a lot of people in Southern California in 2008.
Oh,
so you got to watch out for that.
I remember that.
Yeah, you got to watch out for that. So that's one of the risks involved in that. I don't think that's going to happen now.
It's going to drop some. I don't know if it's going to go that far down, but I know.
Yeah, I better go to church on Sunday to pray for that one.
Me too.
Because that can be a dangerous situation for people like us where we don't have much equity in the house, in the real estate, and prices start dropping and the loan goes with the famous expression underwater. When the real estate value in the market is less than the mortgage on the property, then they're going to call in your loan, and then you still got a loan to pay back, and that's getting hit double. That's tough. So let's hope that doesn't happen, but you have to take that into consideration when you do this.
Well, and I think that's with buying any house. It can happen down the line.
Well, it depends on how you finance it. Yeah, but here you're financing future retirement in addition to losing the financing on the house. That's double dipping. That's double trouble. So that's what you got to watch out for that. And hopefully, see, that's what happened in 2008. A lot of banks, one of them called Bank of America Countrywide, didn't really advise their people who were getting into these mortgages and financing of what could happen. And a lot of people got suckered into situations and got hurt very badly. Now, hopefully, people have gotten smarter and know how to ask the right questions so they don't get into these type of situations. That's why sometimes it's good to buy an insurance policy on the mortgage of your house. And if it gets to be underwater, your insurance policy kicks in and covers that and doesn't allow you to lose the house, and you have a policy to protect you on that. Now, that's additional payments a month, but you're avoiding that risk of your house going underwater. We could get in a whole slew. You could cover a whole class on this one. I'm telling you, but that's exactly what's happening. Good question, Cecilia. That's really important to know. So these are the forms of investments. All right, I'm going to take a little break now. I'm going a little bit beyond my break point, but let me stop for about 10 minutes. You guys can take a little break, and when we'll come back, we're going to take a look at other examples of investments from Chapter 4. This is it, and we're going to continue this conversation next week in our off week. I'm going to do some videos for you about investing so you have some more information about this. But let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back at about 7:25, and we'll pick it up again for another 45 minutes or so for our class. So I'll see you in about 10 minutes, okay? Thanks. Okay, we're back. Little Ray Charles for our break time. Always good to hear Ray. And Jacob, did you hear that music? Very good. Antonio? Antonio, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking coffee.
Coffee. Good for you.
Thanks.
All right. We're back. David, where are you calling from?
I'm in Laverne.
At your house?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. Glad to have you here. All right. We're all coming back. There we are. We're coming back refreshed. Carla's drinking a beer. Don't mind that. That's okay. You can do that.
It's sweet tea.
Oh, sweet tea. Okay. All right. All right. I wanted to show you something in your Blackboard in this class number 3 area of the file folder. There's let me show you something. There, for some of you who are maybe a little bit more sophisticated or want to learn a little bit more about stock investing, there's this PDF file that's called the Basics for Investing in Stocks. If any of you would like to, that's in our class 3 Blackboard file folder. If any of you would like to download that, this is from Kiplinger's, which is a finance publication. Different ideas and definitions of stocks, investing, how it all works. A little bit more specifics than our chapter 4, even though I think chapter 4 in our textbook is the best. That's the best chapter by these authors in this text. Chapter 4 is very well done. This pamphlet does give you a little bit more specifics about, there's that question earlier about price earnings ratio. That's a value sign, earnings per share. Just some more definitions of some key determinants to investing. And if any of you are sophisticated or want to be sophisticated, this is right up your alley. And if you have any questions about that, you can ask me about it off class, and I'll be happy to do this, because I don't know if many of you knew this. I did this for a living for 40 years. So I was an investment banker, and I did a lot of this stuff. So I'm trying to not get too technical with you guys, because there's nothing more boring than an investment advisor. But at the same time, this, for some of you who would like to learn a little bit more and study a little bit more, this guide here is a pretty good guide to have for investing. And I recommend it to you over and above the textbook as far as getting some information about investing. Okay, so there's that. So back to my, we have a chat. Sergio, you don't find this boring? Well, that's good. That's glad. That's really good. It shouldn't be boring for most of you, because as I said earlier at the beginning of class, you guys are doing this right now when you're putting money into your 401ks, and you're putting money into IRAs, and you're putting money into real estate, or you're like Cecilia said earlier, and you're putting money into various different things. This is stuff that drives your future. And Jacob is asking me what it's like being an investment banker. Boy, I could give you a real cynical answer to that one, and I won't. Well, I'll tell you. When I was in college, like you guys, I was an athlete. I was a Division I athlete in college, many years and many pounds ago. And for me to get through college, I had to find the easiest courses possible. And what came very easy to me was numbers. I didn't have to do any studying if I had an accounting class. I know that sounds kind of weird and creepy, but it's true. Ask me to write in college, ask me to read a book in college, ask me to do that stuff. No, but give me numbers and give me economics and finance. That came very easy to me. So when it came time to finding a career, I originally was an accountant, a CPA. And being an accountant, I wanted to do financial analysis work. So I got a job at JP Morgan in New York City, and became in the investment banking business as a financial analyst. And then I graduated into other areas, but mainly as an investment banker, you find companies' money. All right, let's say Jacob has an idea for a business, but he has no money, but he has a great idea for a business. Jacob would come to me and say, Mr. Hasse, I need some money to finance my company. We would put together a business plan. How much money does Jacob need? And I will go out to the markets and I will find him the money to begin his business. The good thing about that is I get 10% of the money I raise for Jacob. And secondly, if Jacob needs additional help down the line to manage his business, he can call on me to do that for, again, more money. And that's what I did as a career for 35 years. I did that to help businesses find capital, find money. And that's what I did. It can be a very, I got to watch out for this. It can be very lucrative business, but it also can be very ethically challenged business. You have to watch yourself and falling into traps of lying, cheating, not being so honest. Fortunately, I had a good group of people around me. I never got into those areas, but it's a tough business to be ethically sound. I think that's a good politically correct way of putting it. And so you got to watch yourself in that. You can make a lot of money, but sometimes you can make a lot of money the wrong way, and that's not, in the long run, that's not too good. So that's the story behind that. But we're talking more about personal money management here. Let me go back to my little whiteboard here. So we're talking about ways here that we can find and invest money. And one of the interesting things is you want to find an investment or a 401k or a real estate, a house, or something that satisfies two things. Makes you feel comfortable and not stressed out by owning that asset, that investment. And secondly, it provides for future growth for you and your family. If you can meet those two guidelines, then you're investing in the right property. Now, for some of us, investing in safe, low risk things might mean just keeping your money in a savings account or just putting your money into a mutual fund where you have somebody pick the stocks or bonds you want to invest in. Other people, you might run your own investment strategy by being a day trader, using Charles Schwab or E-Trade sites every day and buy and sell stocks and bonds and do it yourselves. That's very risky and you got to know what you're doing, but some people like to do that and do it every day. So you have to feel what's most comfortable for you. Now, most of us, like me and you, have families, have other responsibilities. We don't have the time to manage our investments. We don't have the time. It's good for us to understand what our investments are, but we don't have the time to manage them. And that's why we put our trust and our risk in with these funds, 401ks, money market funds, stocks and bonds, that sort of thing, and let people run it for us. And because we just don't have the time to do that. And as you've seen in the last 6 weeks, 6 weeks ago, we had the strongest economy in the history of America. And yes, Donald Trump said that a lot, but he was right. All right. Today, we have one of the darkest economies in America's history in just 6 weeks. 22 billion people are out of work. That's 22 million people not earning money for their families, but also not earning money that they can spend at grocery stores, at shopping malls. That's 22 million people that are not adding value for the companies they were working for because they're no longer working for them. That's a dramatic shift in a short period of time. The Depression of 1930 started in 1929 and didn't hit its full stride until 1932. Here we've hit full stride in 6 weeks. That's tough. And that's how we here in taking this course have to understand that and have to realize we have to change our spending. We have to change our budgeting. We have to change our borrowing. I wouldn't be putting a lot of money on your credit card right now. if I was your financial advisor. Why? Because you're going to need that credit later on. You should try to pay down on your debt right now as much as you can, because you might have to draw on that later on this year. Try to buckle down and drastically cut back. And we're doing that automatically I was just going through my finances last night. Just staying home these last 6 weeks, I'm spending 30% less on food, clothing, those kind of things. I'm spending 10% more on utilities, electricity and gas and water. Why? I'm home all day. But I'm saving a lot of money in other places. So as a personal money management, you have to understand that and be able to deal with that, just like companies are doing right now. Companies are laying off, putting people on furlough, but hopefully they'll get them back into the future. But at the same time, they need cash now, so they're borrowing money from the government. They're getting grants and grants and deals from the United States government in this CARES Act. So they're trying to balance their business and getting ready so they can bring the people back and start creating an economy again. And that's a tough thing. So we have to manage our affairs now like we're a company, reducing costs, saving cash, reducing or managing debt. And at the same time, all our investments, I took a look at my portfolio on Wednesday. My investments are down 30%. Ouch. 30% my investments are down. That's now, I'm not making a big deal of that. Why? Because I'm not going to cash those investments out for another 10 years. So they're going to come back. They might not come back all 30%. Hopefully they do, but I'm not too concerned about that because I'm not going to need that money for 10 years. At the same time, as Cecilia and I were talking about earlier, my housing value here in Claremont has probably gone down 1 or 2% and maybe go a little bit farther. But again, for me, that's not a big deal because I don't have any debt on this house. I'm paid off. So it's all my money anyways. And I figure I'm going to stay here no matter what. So eventually that will come back. But what complicates this, and this is what I'm trying to say, is if you have debt on that real estate, if you have a lot of credit card debt, that's draining funds from you that you could be saving and managing and saving from the future. So you have to make sure you balance all that. And there's nothing wrong with having a mortgage now because you own something. But at the same time, when your income or revenue stream is cut back, you got to cut back in other areas to keep that asset of value, that real estate value. You don't want to lose it. You want to keep making the mortgage payments or work something out with your financing agency. You got to keep having that car because you're going to need the car. Even though we're sitting at home now, in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, we're going to need that car. So you want to manage these by reducing costs and knowing your spending, knowing what type of debt you have, knowing what debt you can get rid of. The debt you can get rid of now, not all at once, but you can get rid of that debt now is by paying it off, the credit card debt, paying it off. You know, somebody called me up the other day and said, Mr. Hasse, Rick, I just got my $1,200 government check. What should I do with it? Well, the first thing I said, put it in the bank and save it. But then he said, well, I got $6,000 in credit card bills. I go, all right, here's what you should do. Take half of that money and pay down one of your credit cards and put the other half in the bank. Or if you really feel you're going to keep your job and you feel secure in your income, take the $1,200 and pay off your one credit card. Reduce that stress on your finances by reducing that debt. So companies are doing that. We are all doing that now. Investments from everybody. From University of Laverne 2 months ago had an endowment fund value of $125 million. Last week it was 92 million. It went down that much in the market. Now, yes, it's going to come back, but that's a big deal. That's a kind of a big deal, and it's going to take a long time for that to come back. So you have to be managing your investments and managing your spending like we talked about in chapter 1, managing knowing where your money is, because you have to balance that, because some of us are going to have changing financial situations. One of the best things you guys are doing now, and you're going to laugh at this probably, but you guys are doing one thing that creates value for you. You're getting your college degree. Trust me. Getting your college degree is going to put you in a better place in the market down the road to get and maintain or get a higher paying job. That's what you're doing right now. You're adding value by sitting to listen to Mr. Hasse and these stupid lectures that he gives. But you're increasing, you're making your value going up because you're getting a college degree. I would not like to be a high school graduate in this economy in about 6 months. It's going to be very difficult. Very difficult. So you're doing something right now to better your financial planning by just finishing up your degree. And Sandy is right. Sandy brings up the question, so even though we have college loans, that's a very good point, Sandy. College loans, yes, you have them. You're going to have to pay them back. All right. But if this economy here's a couple of things you have to your advantage. You have a little leverage here, Sandy. The government is not going to let $1 trillion of college loans go south. There's going to be something coming down the pike where you're going to get some assistance in helping you pay off your college loan. Trust me, that is coming. Joe Biden, Donald Trump, both are going to have that as a campaign issue. What about all these students with college loans? There's going to be something about that. Secondly, the value you're creating, Sandy, by going to college, yes, you're losing some of that value over time when you have to pay back your college loan, but over the grand scheme of things, you are still creating value over and above, even though you have a college loan. Now, I wouldn't be going out and going to like, let's say you graduate this year with your business degree. I would not go out and get it and borrow money to get an MBA degree. No way. Here I am, a teacher that teaches MBA, and I would tell you that is stupid. You're borrowing way too much more money than for the value you're going to get out of that. Now, if you can go to get an MBA degree and your employer is going to help you pay for it, or you're going to pay for it a little bit on yourself, then I would definitely do that. But if you're going to borrow any more money to keep getting a higher degree, do not do that. And don't listen to those knuckleheads in the admissions department say that you're creating more value by getting an MBA degree. You are not, I assure you, with the amount of money you're going to have to borrow to get that MBA degree. It's not worth it. Use money now, borrowing money to get your business degree, your BA degree, your organizational management degree, your accounting degree, your psychology degree, yes, but don't borrow any more. My opinion, but that's a mistake. If you can get an advanced degree and you don't have to use borrowed money, perfect. But don't borrow any more money for education. Trust me. Find somebody else to pay for it. Employer, Uncle Louie, find a rich girlfriend or a boyfriend, whatever. But don't borrow any more money. Borrow now to get your business degree, get your undergraduate degree. That's cool. Don't borrow any more money. That's pretty sound advice, even though I'm kind of infringing on some of your personal affairs here. I wouldn't be doing that if I was a student these days. Okay, so enough of that political opinion. When I was in political, that was pretty sound financial advice as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so back to chapter 4, and one last area I want to talk about. And I know a lot of you don't have textbooks, but I'm just going to highlight this page 126 in your textbook, page 126. It talks about asset allocation, where to put your money, all right, where to put it. And we've talked about that. There's vehicles to put money, stocks, bonds, money markets, real estate, ETFs, mutual funds, savings accounts. But where should it go? Where should it go? Should it go into equity? Should it go into debt? Should it go into real estate? And that's called asset allocation. Where do I put the money that I want to invest into the future? Now, I'm going to give you the general rule of thumb, and you can do with this whatever you want, but this is the general rule of thumb. And let me just make this a little bit better. If I was 20 to 30 years of age, and I was single, okay? If I was 20 to 30 years of age and I was single, I would be totally in the stock market, equity. Because why? You're young. you have time for that money to grow. Put it into mutual funds that invest in stocks. Put it into value funds, funds that are cheap, that have room to grow. Put it into growth funds that are growth companies, solar energy, companies that are not very making much money now, but in the type of business they're in, energy, medicine. You know what? A lot of bio firms are going to find a vaccine for this coronavirus. You know how much money they're going to make in a year and a half once they start getting that vaccination? Huge amount of money is going to be made because everybody in the friggin' world is going to want a coronavirus vaccine. Whoever comes up with that first, whew, that's bio firms. And so you want to invest in those companies that are for growth, but they might be cheap now, or they're not making any profits. They're not making any dividends. They're not growing, but down the road, they will grow. You do that when you're young. You can afford that risk. But then when you get into 30 to 40 years of age, then you want to start being a little bit more conservative, and you want to get into mixed investments, a combination of stocks and bonds. All right, a combination of stocks and bonds. In other words, start getting a little bit more conservative. Start putting money into bonds that you know what they're going to pay you, and you're still with stocks, you're still growing, but you start being a little bit more conservative because you want to maintain your principal value. And as you start having responsibilities like children and family and mortgages and loans, you want to be a little bit more conservative in your liquidity, because if something happens, you need to have that principle of your investment staying solid over time. And let me get this here. I'm running out of space here. Let me move this up here. There we go. Sorry. And then as you get older, you'd be like me. When I was 20, 30 years old, I was 100% into equity stocks. That's all I owned. Now I'm 60 years old and I have 20% equity. Where's all the rest of my money? Real estate and bonds. Why? Because my economic outlook has changed. My personal money management has changed. Why? My kids are grown up. I've paid off my debts. I want to have liquidity and safety in the future because I'm an old gangster. I'm going to start pulling down my retirement in a few years. I want to be a little bit more conservative. I don't want to invest in growth stocks now. Why? I'm going to be dead by the time they pay off, right? I'm going to be dead. It's not going to do me any good. So I want to stay in investments that are paying me and maintaining their value, but at the same time, giving me some security. That's bonds, that's blue chip stocks, all right? I still own Amazon. I still own Apple. Why do I still own them? Because I know they're going to be making money. But I've gotten rid of the companies that have developed energy resources, like windmill companies or solar energy companies. Why? I'm going to be dead by the time they pay off. I've made a little bit of money on them. They're now out. So I've reduced my equity and put more into fixed income, fixed investments, or real estate. Why am I in real estate? Because I'm going to give that to my kids. That's going to be my money I'm going to give to future Hasses. They better not screw that up. All right. But that's what all that's about. So you want to pick the asset allocation, and you want to pick the investments that you're going to be in that fit your lifestyle and fit your responsibilities now. The older you get, the more responsibilities, the more accountability you have to have. So you get a little bit more conservative, especially if you're in an industry and you're working in an industry that's changing. I think I might have said this at the beginning of class, and if I didn't, I'm going to say it again. Many of us today, many of you here in class, are going to be working some point in time on a company that has yet to be invented, that has yet to be created. The economy changes that fast. All right. For me, who cares? I'm going to be dead in 10, 15 years. All right. That's not a big deal. But for you guys, you're going to be in an economy, in an environment of business that's constantly changing. You all know that the reason you're getting your undergraduate degree is because it gives you skills to compete. What skills are that? Communication, technology, thinking, understanding, managing, interpreting. Whatever major you have, you're learning those skills. Those skills are constant to compete in the market. All right. That keeps you of value in the market. That keeps you employable. If you stop learning those skills, somebody's going to replace you. So you have to be competitive, and that's why you're learning those skills. But for older people, and just like that, I don't need to do those skills anymore. I'm not in a competitive. I'm a teacher. That's not a competitive market. I'm passing on my experience, my knowledge, the knowledge of my textbooks, the knowledge of my material to you to develop those skills. I'm not creating anything for myself. Those days are over. So that's why you're keeping yourself competitive. And that's exactly what investments are about. You have higher risk investments when you're younger because you're willing to take that risk. As you get older, you start changing those investments to be a little bit more conservative because you don't want to lose the money that you've made up to this point in time. And that's the general rule of thinking in investments. That asset allocation, where you put the money. You should be sitting down every couple of years at least and see, okay, I only have $10,000 of investments, but where is that money? Is it in stocks? Where is it? You should take an accounting of where your money is in investments every couple of years. And the more you have investments, you should do it every year. I do it every January 1st, first week of January. I take a look at my investments, what they have done, and what do I need them to do in the next year. And you should start doing that, even if it's only $1,000. Because if you do it right, that $1,000 will grow a lot quicker than if you don't pay any attention to it. And that's important. So these are the key parts of investments, and we could spend a whole course. Matter of fact, there are courses at Laverne that all they do is for 10 weeks talk about investments. Whew. We're doing it in 1 week, so that's kind of a lot to chew. But these are the general important factors about this, and you're doing it constantly in your portfolio. You're seeing how your portfolio has changed over time. You're seeing how your portfolio in just 1 week time has changed. That's the market. That's how things happen that quickly in investment. It's good to have a good idea where those are. Now let me bring up something. Not there. Here it is. There's a good PowerPoint in class number 3, excuse me, in Blackboard that kind of goes, so it's like 10 slides that talks about investments. Basically, it's my lecture tonight. But if you want to go through that summarizes our points tonight, you need to establish investment goals. What do you want to do? Do you want to have a house in 10 years? Do you want to have a new car in 3 years? Do you want to have a new television for your man cave in a year? All right, those are investment goals. Do you want to get married and have children? What do you want to do? And what is it going to take to satisfy those? What kind of money are you going to need to satisfy those? And how do you get that money? Well, part of the reasons why you get that money is you're going to school, going to college, and you'll be able to get higher pay. How long will this take? And how much risk are you willing to assume to reach those investment goals? Good story. I had a good friend of mine who had a business, and he was constantly in cash flow problems. This was a true story, by the way. And he was constantly in cash flow problems. And he was a lousy manager of his money. But he was a smart businessman. He knew his business and he knew where he had to go, but he couldn't manage his money. This is why he couldn't manage his money. Whenever he was short on funds for a project, for payroll, to pay bills, he went to Vegas. He went to Vegas and took $10,000 and went to the crap table. And sometimes he made like $50,000. And he was able to use that to feed it back into his business. Other times he lost the $10,000 and his business suffered. But that's how he financed his business, because he was a very good crap player. But at the same time, talk about risk. The risk of the dice to determine your business success and your capital, crazy. So you want to understand the risk of where you get your money and what you need to achieve your financial goals. What economic conditions? I'm sure your financial goals have changed in the last 2 months. 3 months ago, we were all making money. We were all fully employed. The University of Laverne was doing very well. Classes were getting full. Everybody was attending. Boy, have times changed in a short period of time. A lot of people are scared, nervous, out of work. University of Laverne is planning on worst case scenarios about their future. Consider the economic and the economic conditions that you're in, and where are those conditions going to be? And are you willing to make sacrifices to achieve these goals? You know, I'd love to have a house in 5 years, but to do that, no more cable TV. To do that, no more Friday nights with the homeboys clubbing. To do that, you're going to have to change your lifestyle. Are we willing to do that? You can't do both unless you're going to make more money. So you have to understand the pluses and the minuses of achieving your investment goals. Invest in the future, even if it's a small amount. Put a little bit money every week, every month aside. It adds up. Because there's factors of risk: inflation, business failures, market risk. Those are all the risks you have to take into account in investing in the future. Is inflation going to heat up? Are the companies that I think I'm investing in, are they going to be failing in the future? Is the market going to be, right now the market is failing, not just individual companies, it's the overall market, the overall industry, the economy. Are you aware of these risks and what they're going to cause you? Are they going to generate, and we just talked about this earlier, dividends, interest payments, investment incomes? What type of investments are you going to do, and how are they going to give you income? If you invest in your savings account, you're going to get income, but not very much. If you're going to invest in stocks, you're going to get dividends. You're going to get growth. If you're going to invest in real estate, if you're going to live in a house that you own, that's a return because you're safe. You're in a good home in a good area. Or if you use real estate as an investment, is that real estate going to give you income generated off the rental of that property? You're in it for growth. Growth in value and also growth in liquidity. Are you going to be able to pull money out of that? If your stock goes from $20 to $100 a share in 1 year, the only way you're going to get liquidity out of that is you got to sell the stock. But if that stock is paying you dividends, maybe those dividends are enough to satisfy that liquidity, and you can keep owning those stocks, and hopefully they'll keep going up and up and up. Then when you sell them way down the road, you'll get a lot of liquidity. So how's the income or the potential of the growth from whatever investment? Risk, income, time value of money, inflation. What are your investment goals? These are all the qualities you need to be a good investor. Doesn't mean you're going to be Warren Buffett. I'm not even close to Warren Buffett. But it means that over time, you're comfortable in where you're investing in. You understand where you're investing in, and you understand the risk of where you're investing in. If you're comfortable in that, you're in perfect shape. You're in good shape. That's the way you should manage your investments going forward. We're going to talk a little bit more about that next week. In 2 weeks, when we talk about planning and insurance. Insurance is an investment. That's chapters 5 and 6. We'll talk about that. But now I want to show you this here. This is the assignment for April 26th. This is your next work, okay? This is your next work. It's a lot of it's from the material we talked about tonight. And a lot of it is, some of it is going out and doing some research and finding out about some things, kind of like what you did last time. So this is due 6 p.m. Sunday, April 26th. So you got plenty of time. Remember, no class next week. I'll have a couple of videos for you next weekend to keep the mojo going of our class. But also you have this due Sunday the 26th. One question on investing. What do you consider a low risk investment and a high risk investment? All right. Give an example to you of what you consider a low risk investment. What is you consider a high risk investment? That's that question. Risk meaning the chance of losing, okay? The chance of failing, of losing your money. What is low risk? What is high risk? Define what a dividend is. All right? What is a dividend? Give an example of a dividend. All right? What is a coupon payment? This is income off an investment. A dividend is income off a stock. A coupon is income off of bonds. Lending money, we talked about that. Oop, went from question 2 to question 4. This should be question 3, I apologize. Update your portfolio as of Friday, April 24th. Friday, April 24th. So what I would do, if I were you, I would go in, let me bring this up. Here's my portfolio. Oh, I got rid of it. Hang on, let me bring it back up. There it is. Hang on. I had to go into my file and get it. There it is. Okay, here's my portfolio. We looked at it earlier. So next week, what you should do is just take your portfolio as of April 9th, copy it down to the next level, and now fill in your information for April 24th. And redo your formulas, get the update in the indexes, and that's what you should do for April 24th. Redo, so now you'll have 3 portfolios technically, your beginning, the April 9th, and this will be April 24th. So you should update your portfolio by adding another section to that so you can see the flow over time. March 31st, April 9th, April 24th. So that's what you should do for that question on your examination or on your assignment next week. Let me bring that back up again. And then you have a question on chapter 5 and 6. What is insurance? Give an example of an insurance policy you have. Car insurance, renter's insurance, health insurance, mortgage insurance, liability insurance, motorcycle insurance, whatever insurance you have. It doesn't have to be this personal, but give me an example of an insurance policy you have. What is it? Car, life, health. What's the term? Is it for 1 year? Are you paying quarterly payments? What is it? The period covered. What's the risk? What is it covering? For example, in California, the minimum amount of risk in a car insurance policy is, I believe, 10, 30, 15. 10, 30, 15, does that sound right? It's the amount of insurance that you have to have in order to drive a vehicle in California. The liability insurance on the vehicle, on injury insurance. if you hit somebody. It's that basic insurance you need in an automobile policy in California. What is that? That's risk protection. If you hit somebody and injure them, if you hit somebody and you ruin their car, property, casualty insurance. So what type of risk is in health insurance? What's the risk covering? Your health. Life insurance, your death. So find a policy. It doesn't have to be yours personally, but find a type of insurance policy and give me an explanation of what type of that policy is and answer these questions. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. Portfolio, insurance, what's income often an investment, and what is a low and high risk investments. Now, people, don't give me one word or one sentence answers. Spend a little bit of time on this because I'll be marking you off if you don't. All right. Example. What's a low risk investment? So nobody can use this. All right. But what's a low risk investment? A savings account, Mr. Hasse, is a low risk investment. Why is it low risk? Because it's insured up to $100,000 by the United States government. If I put money in a savings account, if that bank fails, I still get my money. It's insured. A savings account also pays you no interest, very little interest. It's a low risk, low return investment. What's a high risk investment? Oh, Mr. Hasse, high risk is buying bonds in Southern California gas. Why Southern California gas? Well, they're having some problems now with their environmental issues, with some lawsuits by having those gas leaks all around and by having gas problems during the fires of the last couple of years. They're close to bankruptcy. That's a high risk investment. When a company is close to bankruptcy and you're lending them money, that's a high risk investment. And what that means, you're going to expect high interest payments, high coupon payments, because you're assuming that high risk. Investing and lending money to Southern California Gas, Pacific Gas and Electric. They're high risk now because they're in financial trouble. So that's what is considered a high risk investment. Lending money to the government of Greece is a high risk investment. The country's been in financial turmoil for years. They've been bailed out by their fellow Euro countries. That's not a good investment if you want low risk. So I want examples of that and explain it to me, a paragraph or so. Give me some explanations, some examples of that, and be a little creative. Think about that. That's what I'll be basing that on. So you have this due on Sunday, April 26th. Okay? And I'll change this. This should be 1, 2, not 4. I look like a moron there. Should be 3 and 4. 4 questions. And I'll change that to be close to the Blackboard. All right. There's that. So anybody have any last questions on investments? Do we just scratch the surface tonight? Because why? This is a very technical and a very difficult subject, but I think we gave the basic definitions, the basic explanation, and provided some material that some of you who have some interest in investments can read and research and get some additional detail about that. So that's an important strategy for personal money management, is where you put your money. Any questions on this? Sandy, a cat just ran from behind you. I don't know what that was all about. All right. Now here's another question. Oh, we have a chat. We have Jacob. When you are looking for an apartment or a house for the first time, what would be the better investment? Well, that's a very good question, Jacob, and I'll put it as simply as possible. Which one can you afford? If you're looking for a house, that means you got to come up with a down payment. It means you got to get home insurance. It means you have a lot more expenses. You have to have a down payment. You have a lot more expensive. You got property taxes. You got all kinds of stuff going on there. With a rental, an apartment, all you have is the rent. You don't have to pay property taxes. That's the landlord does that. You have very minimal expenses. Now, yes, you're in a smaller place, but the risk there to you financially is less. It might not be very fun to live in an apartment compared to a house, but you got to take a look at your income. You got to take a look at your, again, your ability to absorb the risk of buying a home. Cecilia, you probably know this, and a lot of you. If you own a house, it's lovely, but you got to pay property taxes twice a year. You got to pay a lot more, and maybe to maintain your property. With a rental apartment, the landlord maintains the property. You don't have to do anything.
You also need to invest in, what is it called? House. I pay it every year for my repairs on my house. I don't have to pay for anything except the service call.
Yep, it's basically maintenance insurance,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. There's a better word for that, but yes,
Yeah.
there's a lot, Jacob, there's a lot more expenses with owning a house. Now there's a lot more pleasure in owning a house, but are you willing to assume the risk of those payments? All right, so that's why a lot of us like to rent, because I don't want to spend money on a new furnace or a new stove or new carpeting. Let the landlord worry about that. Now, if the landlord doesn't take care of that, then maybe you should get the hell out of there and go to a better rental. But that's the responsibility, and that's the factor there, the difference, okay? Now, some of us, once we rent for a long time, we can't wait to get out of this place. But then, because mainly you have time to raise the money, your credit gets better, you now can assume the responsibility of owning a real estate, all right? Some of us get owning real estate maybe a little bit too fast, or we wait maybe a little bit too long. So it's a balancing of you assuming the pros and the cons of renting versus owning. Okay, good. That's a good question, Jacob. Any other questions? Now I'm going to ask you guys a question. We're halfway through our course. If you don't want to answer this in front of the group, that's fine by me. But and we've had our student interviews. But if things are not going the way you'd like, if you want to talk a little bit more about certain things or a little bit less about certain things, give me some feedback this week. Send me an email, send me a text message, put a post to the discussion forum. Give me some feedback about, we're halfway apart. We have 2 more classes after tonight, if you can believe it. 2 more, then we're done. So I want to make sure you're getting value out of this class. Our remaining subjects are, we're going to be talking next time we meet about planning investments, planning the future, and insurance, covering the risk of planning. And then our last subject is our old friend, taxation, taxes, how to manage that. Those are our remaining subjects. If there's something else you want to talk about in the future, the next 2 classes, give me a holler. If there's something you want to go into a little bit more depth, give me a holler. But let me know what you need from this class and how you're doing it. We are in tough times. If you want to go back to managing spending and cash flow, back to what we talked about in week 1, because of the changes in a way we're doing things now because of this virus, we can go back and talk a little bit more about that. So give me some feedback. If you don't give me any feedback, I'll just keep doing what I'm originally planned, and we'll go forward. And make sure you keep tabs on doing the assignments on time and getting the grades so you know where you stand in class. That's important for you. And because this class goes by so quickly, I want you to be aware of where you stand at all times in the class. All right, fair enough?
Professor,
Yes.
question. This is Carlo.
Yeah.
Are we going to talk about the case paper at all
We're talking about that next time.
next time? Okay.
Okay, so
All right.
good question. You're gonna do assignment 3 this next period, and then when we have class on May 1st, I'm gonna put the topics up next weekend. I'm gonna have a video with the topics up, and that paper is due the last day of class on the 15th. So I'm gonna put the topics up next weekend. I'm gonna do a video about that, and then we're gonna talk about that in class on May 1st, and then you can start writing the paper. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, so that's how that works. And next week when I show you the topics, if some of those topics are not what you would like to do, I'm open for suggestions. I'm open for suggestions. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Sandy. Open for suggestions of anything. Like some of you might be might be have specific instances in your own personal finances that you might want to research and look into, and they're not part of the topics. Let me know, and we can make them part of the topics if you'd like to do something. All right. So enjoy your next week if you can. Stay healthy and happy, and I'll be around if you have any questions. Do your assignment. A week from today, you're doing your portfolio, and I'll see you back here on May 1st. Can you believe that? May 1st. But I'll see you on videos next weekend. Be well, everybody. Good seeing you. You look good. Oh, one last chat question. Hang on. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Zina. Thank you. Okay, we'll see you guys all. Adios. Oh, by the way, I did record this class. If anybody wanted to go back through and watch it, this class was recorded. It will be posted to YouTube and to Blackboard. Have a good weekend. Bye, Christina.